would you do it again? Would you ask that question again?
Yes, of course. If I didn't want to ask it again, I probably shouldn't work as a journalist. It was a fair question. Everyone recognized that, so I'm not the one that should step back. And therefore, yes, I will go back and ask the same question. Also because if that question raised so much anger from the people, so much awareness, and then after that question there were politicians asking the same question, there were debates on that question, it meant that it was a useful question to ask, so I will do it again.
From Amman, I am Francesca Lorenzini, and this is Near East, the podcast that tries to make a sense of what's happening in the Middle East and its impact across the world. Today, our guest is Gabriele Nunziati. A few months ago, he made headlines after his contract with the Italian news agency Agenzia Nova was terminated. This happened sometime after he asked the European Commission spokesperson Paola Pino whether Israel should be responsible for the reconstruction of Gaza, much like Russia should be considered responsible for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Following these episodes, the journalism community was really close to Gabriele and the case became viral. Today, Gabriele works as an independent journalist in Brussels covering European affairs. Hi, Gabriele. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So what's the atmosphere in Brussels right now?
The atmosphere in Brussels, let's say it's not the best. I'm still struggling a lot after what happened to me. In general, I will say business as usual. And for me, it's been pretty tough.
Take us back to that day. What were you covering and what led to that question?
I was covering everything for Agenzia Nova because they sent me there at the end of August. I started to work for them here in Brussels on the 1st of September. And since I was their only correspondent there, I was mainly covering all the most important topics of the European Union. That day was the 13th of October. Those were the days when the so-called ceasefire agreement was signed. So in those days people were talking about the future of Gaza, of what was going to happen in the next days. And in the meantime, in the days before, the European Commission was forwarding the idea of making Russia accountable for the level of destruction in Ukraine. So that day, I would say that question came to my mind quite easily and logically, because of course there were all those changes in Gaza and no one was talking about the accountability of Israel. So I just raised my hand and asked that. And of course, as a lot of people saw, the spokesperson didn't reply. Then all the things went down really quickly.
So the question came to your mind on the spot. You didn't plan it before.
If I have to be honest, it came to my mind in the weekend before. I was back in Italy and I couldn't stop thinking about this issue. It was so obvious, the hypocrisy and the double standards in dealing with the different situations. So once I got back to Brussels on Monday, I just decided to ask it.
When you asked that question, did you feel like you were crossing a line somehow?
I can say that I knew that question will not have been appreciated because I know the environment in my agency, I know the mediatic system in Italy. So I know that when you talk about Israel, when you directly ask about accountability for Israel, it can be a tough spot. But of course, I didn't expect that ending.
Let's say that the reaction from Agenzia Nova was a little bit surprising to you.
Yes, I wouldn't expect them to interrupt our collaboration. Also, I didn't expect my question to go viral in the first place. I didn't expect anyone to see it beside the people inside the commission. Of course, I expected that if someone from my agency was going to see it, probably would not appreciate it and would have said something to me. But I didn't expect to get to that point where just for the question, as also they publicly admitted with the press release, just to interrupt our working relationship.
I actually remember scrolling my feed on the Instagram and seeing the video of you asking the question. I don't remember which outlet shared it. In your opinion, this virality somehow played a role in their final decision? Hadn't you been viral, maybe they would have taken other measures?
It's really hard to say. I'm sure that even if it didn't go viral, I think they still wouldn't appreciate it. I think probably it was going to be the same, but of course these are just speculation.
However, you also had a lot of solidarity from the journalism community and from people in general. How did you react to this?
I was really happy in those tough days to see the solidarity from all over the world was really overwhelming in a positive way. I realized there's still a lot of people that cares about journalism, about freedom of press, about just sticking together in this difficult world. And as you said, I received like solidarity from journalists, from media organizations. So I have to say everyone was really supportive. So there was like something good that I took from that situation that of course was really stressful. I lost my job, I lost my main income.
During this time, in the last 2 years, I would say after October 7th, I spoken to a bunch of journalists in North America, Europe, or people working for Western media that said that reporting about Israel even before October 7th can be sensitive. And what happened to you is an example of it. Did it happen to some of your colleagues as well? Did you come across similar situations?
In the last weeks, I've talked with several colleagues from different countries, and I would say in most cases, they all told me that it's really hard to openly talk about Israel and Israel's accountability. There's also a self-censorship that comes from being conscious of the environment and what are the risks. So even before you get pushed down, you decided for yourself to just avoid certain topics. And a lot of people telling me that it's a tough spot and they avoid asking those questions, or they receive pressures, or they know that the top management of media outlets tried to avoid to talk about Gaza. So I would say something pretty common.
Has everything changed for you after what happened in the way you approach journalism?
For me, it changed a lot. Two different aspects, I would say. One, it's not really related, but I want to tell it because I think it's something also important as a journalist. In those days, I was receiving a lot of calls from journalists, from media outlets. I was for the first time in my life the news and not the journalist. I realized how sometimes we don't treat that person as a person, but more as an object or a goal. And I can tell you that you really feel it when on the other side you have a journalist that cares about you as a human being, and when you are in front of a person that just want to get out the news for his own professional goals and doesn't really care about the other person. So I hope it's something I learned from this situation. I want to bring it back when I am the one interviewing other people. And if we are talking about journalism in general, now I can say that it's been really hard. For example, I was supposed to start to work for a media outlet, and they were looking for someone here in Brussels. And let's say the journalists all wanted me. The top management, I don't know how to say, the manager, the person in charge said that they could not hire me just because it's me. Like we cannot hire Gabriele Nunziati because it's Gabriele Nunziati. It's been really hard, but I don't give up.
What are you working on right now?
I have a couple of collaborations only with the Italian media for now. I wrote some articles about the relations between European Union and Gaza and Israel. These are really not enough to survive. So I'm still trying to find a balance. And then I'm working on a couple of new projects with some young people. It's still, let's say, a secret. It's not, we are still working on it, but we would like to bring to light in the next weeks.
Yeah, that's great. A question that also came to my mind, it's what brought you to journalism? Why did you decide to venture into this field?
That's a nice question. I decided when I was, I think, around like 18 and 19. But before that, I never thought of becoming a journalist because I was not shy as a person, but I was shy at writing, I would say, because I always saw it as showing a part of yourself. And I always struggled a bit with that. So I never thought of writing. One day, one of my colleague from high school that was like leading this high school magazine, and it was not really good at that. People were not really liking the way he was leading the magazine. So as a joke, because we were also friends, I said like, I will make my own magazine. And it started as a joke, but at the end, I started to talk with people, and when we did our own magazine, of course, we decided to not like step on his shoes, because we were just joking. So he kept doing his magazine in the high school, and we created like a magazine that was connecting several high schools of my hometown. And I found out that I really liked it. I like writing, finding stories, and from that moment, I never stopped. I have some days where I'm losing hope, because if you want to be a free and independent journalist, is really hard. I mean, I'm 29, so I'm growing up, and of course, I would also like to have a bit more stable life, and to be able to predict about my future and not always live in a sort of uncertainty. But I'm still really passionate about it. So for now, I want to keep doing it.
Going back to politics, some European governments, such as France and Germany, have taken steps to broaden the legal definition of anti-Semitism in ways that critics say may affect political speech against Zionism. Italy may follow soon. Probably this spring, a similar law will pass. As you are a journalist working in Brussels, so in the heart of Europe, how will it impact your work in your perspective?
That's a good question. It's going to impact a lot, because we already have this problem, as we were saying before. Even if there is no law defining that, when you try to talk about certain issues, they still try to stop you, to limit you. So you already have the problem. But of course, when you try to pass a law like this one, you make it lawful to stop journalists to criticize Israel for what they are doing. So I think is going to complicate a lot more our job. And I think that should be something to ask to the European Commission, because they stressed a lot how important is freedom of press, how they fight for it. What is happening with this law is something that I think is gonna limit freedom of press. So it's something that the European Commission should talk about and should take care of.
Something I'm wondering right now is, would you do it again? Would you ask that question again?
Yes, of course. If I didn't want to ask it again, I probably shouldn't work as a journalist. It was a fair question. Everyone recognized that. So I'm not the one that should step back. And therefore, yes, I will go back and ask the same question. Also because if that question raised so much anger from the people, so much awareness. And then after that question, there were politicians asking the same question. There were debates on that question. It meant that it was a useful question to ask. So I will do it again.
And is there any advice? I don't know who will watch this episode, but maybe there are young aspiring journalists. What would you suggest them?
It's really hard to say, because of course everyone has his own personality and his own story. But what I would like to suggest to a younger journalist is to not lose the feelings towards the topics we are talking about, to not lose also the anger. Usually anger is seen as something negative, and of course can be. But if we use that anger that we have in front of social injustice and we are able to canalize it in a good way, I think it can be an engine. And I think it's really important for a journalist, because in my experience, I've seen many journalists, also young journalists, that just lost that anger, that thirst of justice. There's also emotional involvement in the topic that you are dealing with, and they stop being a journalist, because when you don't care about the topic you're talking about, you're not, of course, ready to give the best of yourself as a journalist. So of course, I'm not saying that you have to be driven, to be led by your emotions and feeling, but you have to find a way to have them inside of yourself, but put them in the right direction. But I think you need them in this job. You still need them.
Actually, the words that you're saying remind me what my investigative journalism professor told us a couple of years ago during my master's. And he said that what actually helps you to go on when you work on long-term projects is anger. His anger is the will to do something different, something better, maybe.
Yeah, I
So
agree
thank
with
you so
him.
much for bringing it up. Thanks to Gabriele Nunziati for joining Near East today. And to you who are watching or listening to this podcast, let's see you in the next episode with a new guest to make the East a little bit closer.